Maybe.
Okay. So thank you for the introduction. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. My name is Mike Reynolds, and I work for Salesforce. Specifically, I'm on the Slack team. I am a marketer, but I used to be an enterprise technical architect. I think I have 25 certifications, and I believe I have written 15 of them. So I've been doing this a long time, and I am, even though I'm a marketer, I'm a pretty technical marketer. I've only been a marketer for a year, so I don't really know if I'm even that good at it. But I am good at the technical bits, and so we can get into some of that. So I do, of course, want to show our forward-looking statement slide. I'm known for a lot of things, and my filter is not one of them. So there's a very good idea that, or chance, I should say, that if you ask me a forward-looking question, I am going to give you a very forward-looking answer. So please do not make any purchasing decisions based off of my forward-looking statements. When in doubt, always reach out to your account executive. They would be happy to chat with you. So without that, I don't need this deck anymore. I'm just going to use Slack to do this whole thing with Slackbot. So the first thing I want to say is a lot of people don't have access to Slackbot because they either don't use Slack at work, or when they're using Slack at work, they don't have access to it. Maybe the company hasn't bought it yet, or whatnot. That's a very terrible excuse, because you do, in fact, have access to Slackbot. So if you go to the Slack community, which is at slackcommunity.com, and you sign up there, we will send you an email with a link to join this very workspace where I'm going to be doing this demo. And you could always go right up here to the top of the screen and click on Slackbot. I'll make this a little bit bigger. And click on Slackbot here. And then you'll be able to chat with Slackbot. And it is literally the same place that I'm doing it now. The level of access that I have to Slackbot would mirror what you would get if you join our community. So again, slackcommunity.com. Sign up, it's free. It's just like the Trailblazer community, except ours lives in Slack. So if you want to get hands-on with this, or any of the other things that I do, this is where you want to be. Also, if you have questions about anything, you could always ask Slackbot, or you can find an expert here in the community. Specifically, I'm going to do a tag for my own YouTube series. It's called Slack School. We have a channel where when I release new episodes, I post them in here. I'm releasing one episode a week, so it's a great opportunity if you want to learn new stuff about Slack in particular. Anyone have any questions about how to get into the community before I actually get into the demo? Cool. So the first thing I'll say, and I'm going to ask Slackbot this as well, but what does everyone think? And you don't have to answer. I just want you to think in your head. What is the difference between an agent force agent, any third-party agent out there, and Slackbot? What is the fundamental difference? So I'm going to start there. Now, what's cool about this question is, when we think about the difference, Slackbot's going to have a lot to say, but it's going to hit on this concept of context. So Slackbot, because Slackbot is living inside of Slack, Slackbot's context is everything that I have access to from Slack. So I'm assuming we're going to get that. Yeah, it's saying it's native, right? Which it didn't dig in as much into the context piece as I really wish it would have. But this is the big difference. This is like the banner thing. If you leave this presentation knowing anything, Slackbot has access to what I have access to in this Slack workspace, which means that if I have, for example, integrated my own calendar, right? My Google Calendar, and, I can ask a question like this. And because Slackbot has the context of Slack, it's going to read my calendar. Then it's going to take the information from my calendar, and then it's going to put it in here and summarize my day for me or my week. It could pretty much do whatever I want it to do. And I don't have to really give it like incredible detail when it comes to what my request is, because it shares my context. All I said was, can you summarize the meetings I have this week? I didn't say, hey, go look at my Google Calendar, not my manager's Google Calendar. And I didn't have to say what week I was talking about. I just said this week. And there's a simplicity to how I can work with Slackbot because of what Slackbot is. Slackbot is an incredibly big LLM, right? Very big LLM. So it knows not just how to write Apex code, but it also knows what a typical LLM, if you're using Claude or Gemini or anything, right? Any of these models, it knows the same stuff, right? But it has my context as a grounding. So when I say something like summarize my week, I don't have to say, oh, hey, I'm a Salesforce employee and my name is Mike and I do the thing Slack School and I have all of the resources available as a typical Salesforce employee. Now, knowing that, answer my question, because it already knows that. And the impact of that is massive, right? So I was working on a project, this is a real story. I was working on a project and I wanted to, right after Dreamforce, somebody gave me this idea to build an integration between Slack and Salesforce that every time a piece of metadata was changed and a new line was written in the setup audit log object, that information is moved into an audit log channel and then stored in Slack forever. The benefit being, I could put a channel expert agent in there, and that channel expert agent would be able to answer questions like, tell me when this validation rule was created, every time it's been edited, specifically highlighting times it was turned on or off. And the channel expert could do that. Well, I needed to figure out how to do it because there's some technical hurdles in there. And I was asking Gemini. And I'm going back and forth with Gemini. And I've done some things that are kind of technical. And I realized pretty quickly the problem I was facing was that I needed something as a platform to run a small app for me, to do some throttling, to make sure that I didn't exceed limits. Gemini told me to turn my personal computer into a web server. This is a stupid idea. I don't want to do that. But it's an LLM. It's trying to solve my problem and it has a bias towards answering me positively. And because of that, it's trying to find a solution, but it's missing the context that I'm a Salesforce employee. I can get a Heroku server. I can spin up a Heroku dyno in like 3 minutes. It's basically as long as it takes me to log in. And I have that available to me, but it doesn't know that because it's missing the context. It didn't say anything that was technically false, but it was missing context. So the potency of Slackbot is that Slackbot knows so much about us. It knows about our org. I can do things like I can use abbreviations that are common within Salesforce, and Slackbot knows what those abbreviations mean, right? And these are little things, and we don't necessarily think that they're so impactful, but they're genuinely game changers in the way that we interact with our AI. Because how many times have you seen on social media, people have their like, here's the perfect prompt, or I always do this with I always ask these questions, or I always start my prompts like this. That's all so tedious. Like you have to do so much like twisting and turning and bending of your interaction with your agents or your AI to get it to not produce garbage, right? And that just doesn't happen with Slackbot, or it happens to a massively reduced degree to the point that you don't really notice it when you're talking. And so really, this is true AI-powered whatever, but living as a colleague that knows everything that you would know from your instance, which is, I think, super, super impactful. And so we can do some things that are kind of complicated in a really simple way. So, Chris, you were telling me you have 11 certifications. I'm going to pick on you for a second. This is a massive request, right? So I want you, I have a friend who's got an application architecture developer, wants to learn more about Slack's architecture, how it works with Salesforce, 30, 60, 90 day, by week, give me citations, and then put it into a canvas. And we look at what Slackbot's got to do to be able to do this well. First off, it's got to understand the problem. I want you to build this learning plan, but I want you to cite stuff. I want you to understand what Slack architecture is and understand how it plays with Salesforce. And then I want you to use the understanding of how those two systems actually play with each other to then bring references and create a cohesive learning plan, and then put it in a canvas. Take an action and actually create that canvas, including references as receipts. This is a massive request. Like, I would expect this to take some time here. But when we look at what it's doing and when we look at what the output is, I think we're probably going to be pretty happy. So here it's going to summarize its output for us. And then I'm going to open the canvas. One note. So nothing specific on the topic, which is interesting. I know why that is, because we don't talk about architecture very much. So one of the limitations that I will say Slackbot has today, that it will not have, this is a forward-looking statement, Slackbot will not have this limitation for much longer. I'm not going to give you a date because I'll say it wrong if I guess. But Slackbot will have the ability to search the internet. And the reason why I asked this as kind of a hairy question is to show you that limit. So today, it won't search the internet, but soon, like very soon, it will. You're always going to see a tag like this, right? When Slackbot does something, you're going to see that AI is doing it. That's really important, and I would not remove it. I would recommend that you don't remove it. Tags like this, there's probably also one at the bottom of the canvas. They help inform the next AI that looks at this, that this was written by AI, right? So we don't want to remove that because you don't want to build AI content on AI content because that leads to deeper hallucinations. But here's an overview. It's kind of summarizing what I asked for. And then here is my week by week with resources of everything that I just asked for. And this, when I look at it, this makes a lot of sense. Exploring literally the vision, then looking at the second phase, understanding how Flow and Slack are going to play together. This all makes a lot of sense. It's missing the citations because it couldn't access the internet. But this is really pretty good. I do think this is kind of funny too. Telling it, you should reach out to me if you have questions. I'm a good resource. That's true. I am a good resource. And then here's the tag at the bottom, right? And then it's like, hey, certification's worth pursuing, going after that Dev 2. But again, a little disappointed that it said Dev 1 because I said you had Dev, right? So is it perfect? No. Is this pretty impressive? Yeah, I think so. This is a really good plan, right? And it's for something that's very dicey. It's difficult to really get your head around a lot of this content. So this is pretty impressive. The nice thing about this, you can also go back and forth with Slackbot and tune or refine this plan. It's a lot of different things that you can do from that perspective. Now I want to flex one other thing, and then I want to start taking your questions. I can also do prompts for everybody. But there's another thing that I really think is, from an end user perspective, massive, massive difference between the way that Slackbot functions and the way that a typical agent functions. And this gets into kind of the ideas that we use when we're building agents. Agentforce agents are on a consumption model, right? Whether you're paying for credits outright or flex credits, excuse me, you have to pay every time that agent is thinking. And because of that, we built in some very reasonable guardrails to use a process that is called tombstoning to make sure that we don't waste your credits. Tombstoning happens when you ask a question that steps sufficiently far away from where we want you to be, that we essentially kill the request. And we push you back on track, and then we give you a really kind of short, curt answer that's like, look, here's what you're supposed to be talking to me about. Talk to me about that, or don't talk to me. You almost never get that with Slackbot. And so even though I've said, can you tell me the difference between you and an agent? Can you summarize my week for me? Can you create this learning plan for me? I can continue to be as scatterbrained as I want, and I can ask ridiculous off-the-wall questions, and it's just going to go give me the answers. Even though it can't search the internet, it does have this incredibly large LLM to draw from. And so I have a question in mind that is really obscure, and it's going to take me a second to type because I'm a terrible speller, but I think it's a good way of showing how deep the knowledge is that this thing actually contains. So I've asked it to explain the difference between the identity of indiscernibles and the indiscernibility of identity, which if anybody's like super deep into metaphysics, I love that it knows Leibowitz's law. What this is, it's the, if you ever want to, again, dive really deep into the metaphysics of math, one of these is a logical proof that the equal sign works, and the other is a logical proof that shows the equal sign does not work. And we don't need to get into it, but both are true at the same time. And that's what it's explaining here. And this is accurate. So it's appropriately cited, even though it can't go to the internet and get me a link, but it knows the information. And this is correct. And this is correct. And it's explaining it fairly well. So I think one of the things that just consistently amazes me about the way that Slackbot functions, because it doesn't have the same type of guardrailing, it's still guardrailed. It still has toxicity detection. It still prevents against from injection attacks and different things, but it doesn't try to force you back into a track. It's very flexible. It's very willing to just answer your question, whatever your question may be. I have used this like at work for real to solve very, very real problems that I think otherwise would have been remarkably difficult. My biggest was just before Dreamforce last year, literally the Sunday before. I was going to the airport right after I got off finishing what I was doing. And I was just checking one of my orgs to make sure that the 2,000 environments that I had created to get me through all of my training that I was going to do at Dreamforce, that the environments were okay. And I pulled off an environment and it wasn't okay. There was a problem. I couldn't create any agents in it because of an issue that lived in Black Tab. And I could tell by the error message, it was not a in org issue. It was a us issue. And I asked Slackbot if anyone had ever seen the error message before. And Slackbot says, as a matter of yes, 2 years ago, we had this issue. This is how we corrected it. And I was like, well, that was quick. Not only, yes, we've seen the issue, but yes, here's how you fix it. But then it went further and it said, you know, and as a matter of fact, there are some cases that were just opened this afternoon from customers who are experiencing this issue in their org. I bet we have a bug. And I said, okay, well, who's here on the weekend who could look into this? And it gave me the team name and the name of the person who was on call. I had a Sev1 bug issue created and resolved in literally the span of like 2 hours. And some 30,000 Salesforce environments were impacted, and all of them got corrected using the steps that Slackbot told me. And so Slackbot identified the correct problem, identified how to fix the problem, identified the scope of the impact, found that there were in fact customers facing this problem, and then identified where I could get help. That team used the output from Slackbot to directly go and fix the problem. The Sev1 from creation to finish was like 2.5 hours. And I don't think you can get more impactful than that. Like, there's no way on a Sunday I would be able to get the people that I need just on the lucking chance that they would be looking at their phones or their computers, you know? So it's really an immensely impactful tool that has actually, I mean, everybody's like, you need to use AI for everything, but this actually works. It actually connects the dots and helps me with my day. So it is the top of the hour for me. And so which is 8 p.m. So I need to call my kiddos real quick. I'm going to go on mute. I think you were going to do some networking for 5 minutes. And yes, while you're doing that, think of questions you want me to test with Slackbot. And if I need to get into a different environment that's connected to other things, I can. But I think we should take some time just asking Slackbot different questions to see if we can figure out where the limits are, where the gotchas are, and then we can step through that whole process.
Okay, Mike. So see you soon, like in 5-10 minutes?
Yeah, well, just 5 minutes. It's not going to take long.
5 minutes.
I'm not even going anywhere.
Okay. So, hi, everyone. Let's do a little exercise, what Mike said.
So, you can pause recording.
I can pause recording? How?
Or sorry, we don't have to pause.
Yeah, I don't know how.
But yeah, we can like think of prompts to ask Slackbot.
Okay, come.
You guys can go there. So we can ask questions to him directly, or we can think it over.
So if anyone online has any prompts to ask Slackbot or any example use cases, feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand. Yeah.
Does it gonna go and get the details of the needs, opportunities, and cases?
Okay.
Yeah, it gets the context, metadata. That's what I understand, but we can ask that question.
Details.
Let them show it to you.
Yeah, that's where Salesforce and Slack stand out because they have the reference compared to other LLMs.
I put it in the chat, so
you always confirm.
I put the question in the chat, so then we can get it asked.
The future plan, right? The basically when they're trying to connect to open internet and get the answers, basically getting the context on what kind of guardrails are we trying to put in place so that we don't accidentally publish anything to or read anything from.
Okay.
Now, I guess the one thing that we were talking about is like the same plan that you got, you get citations. So that you can click on that link and go, okay, go and do this resource or go and do the trailhead. Right now, I just give the trailhead name. When you want to click on
So they must still be in the bath. So we will do this one. So you wanted to know about related records?
Yeah, she was just saying like getting
Here, we'll do this.
different objects.
Has everyone seen Salesforce channels?
I haven't.
Yes, no, maybe so.
Oh yeah, Salesforce channel, yeah. Like, but yeah, I guess some people haven't. So
Okay, so here I am in Slack, but this is a case record. So when I click over here, I can see the case data. So I'm seeing case data because this is a Salesforce channel. So a Salesforce channel is literally a Slack channel that has a tightly coupled relationship with the related Salesforce record. So I don't want to say master detail relationship because that's not fair, but I will say tightly coupled. So here in this instance, we're going to do something very similar to what I was talking about before. So I'll use this side pane view of Slack, Slackbot. I can still see that record information here, or if I wanted to see, the case history or case comments, any other related lists that I wanted, I could go look at all of those. I still have the messages tab, where I can still type messages. But for now, what I'm going to do is open Slackbot, and you'll see there's this little preview here. Ask me anything about that. So it inherently knows what I'm looking at because this is all within the context of Slack itself. So I could ask, this is just a very straightforward question, right? If I'm assuming, I'm just some support rep, I'm trying to sort out like what can I do, what can I not do? Have we ever seen this issue before? Maybe I'm a new hire and I don't actually know, or this is a part of the technology that I haven't worked with before, right? Maybe it's a, I don't know, automotive cloud. I've never played with that, so maybe it's an automotive cloud thing, and I don't know, right? I'm just trying to help out. So. So this is interesting. It just looked at the one record and the message. So it says there's not much of a description of the actual issue. So it is able to read the case, but so I can directly tell it like, hey, can you look at some other cases and see what's going on? Maybe there are other things. So not only can it read the record that's right here, it can go into Salesforce on my user's behalf and then go find other cases. Oh my goodness. It is really having a hard time right now. I wonder if I'm not logged in anymore. Maybe this was a bad record to test on.
So basically, you put in the case record into a channel, right? Oh, sorry. I see you have a call, right? So.
Yeah, they're calling me. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, no worries. And also, Ranga has a question on the Slack.
Have you used Salesforce channels before? Salesforce channels, have you used it before? No.
What do you use in your organization? Okay. Because in my organization, we used to use Slack, so it's just we also using Slack.
This is like Salesforce channels is specifically record, so check it out.
And do you use Slack in your organization?
I used to.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you use like Teams now?
Yeah, then I use Teams as well. I use Copilot mostly for doing anything of this sort. So it connects to all of the Office 365 and gets everything from anywhere.
But
It has context already.
Okay. So it has like the documents of
Yeah.
Office stuff.
So whatever Gemini does for your Google and ecosystem, same thing the Copilot does for. And yeah, we use Slack a lot in my previous organization. We have a lot of agents integrated with it. All of this happened through this. Right now, all of Accenture.
So, sorry, I apologize for the interruption, but we're good now. So I saw this last question about how are we charged for using Slackbot. Essentially, if you are on the premium version of Slack, so you're an enterprise customer, Slackbot is just there and it's available. There are there is the ability to have a limited use of Slackbot if you are not on that enterprise level of billing. And that's basically you're just buying consumption credits. But if you're on an enterprise grid, it just does this without you having to do anything extra. It's truly a part of Slack, right? It's not a bolt-on. It's as ingrained into Slack as channels and messages are. Because Slackbot was the original element of Slack architecturally that delivered system messages. So it's been here since like V1 of Slack, if that makes any sense.
Also, I had a question on the previous example, but I guess are you demonstrating anything right now, or?
Oh, I just asked that question about pricing. But I can flip to another example.
No, I was just asking a question about when you pulled in the case, right? So you pulled a case to a separate channel. I think it created a channel or something.
So what that is, it's Salesforce channels. Salesforce channels is it's this ability for us to have data. Like this is an account. And if I go over to the account details tab, it's going to show me this account record. And this is an older account. I mean, I know it says new org, but yeah, I might not actually be connected to that environment anymore. Maybe.
But basically it's pulled into Slack, but
it was connected. Look at you go. Yeah, so it's not actually pulling it in, it's querying. So the data, when you use Salesforce channels, like I could edit this if I wanted to. I could put something and then hit save, and I'm changing the Salesforce data. But the data actually continues to reside in Salesforce. So what our build approach for this is, there's a significant level of complexity that exists across the hundreds of thousands of Salesforce orgs that we have, where there is no way to guarantee that I have the correct access for the user unless I rely on what's already built, right? We can't force another model. We have to accept the Salesforce model. And so what we do is in Slack, each individual user goes in and they log in to Salesforce. Once they have logged into Salesforce, it could be multiple Salesforce orgs. You can. I think the limit it's a weird number. It's like 55 or something. But you can log into many Salesforce orgs, and it's not like you can pick any org. You have to connect that org to that Slack workspace. But once it's connected, you can then log into it. We use your access, whatever it is, to view this record. Now, this is a private opportunity record, and this opportunity record, I'm the owner, so I can see it. But there are going to be other users that don't have access to this channel, and they won't be able to see the record. You can also have, which I think is really cool, you can have this channel here, and I can have a Slack user that does not have a Salesforce license have a conversation with me right here. They will see this tab, but when they click on it, they'll see a button right here that says log into Salesforce.
Got it.
Because Salesforce doesn't know what data to display. So it's going to prompt them to log in. And they can't log in because they don't have a user. Now, you can also see this tab, this messages tab in Salesforce. There's a standard component, it's just called Slack. And you can put the Slack component on your record page. And then this conversation happens in Lightning. What's cool about that is that means that if I have, let's say I've got a warehouse team that doesn't use Salesforce, because we're not going to pay, a premium license like Salesforce for folks that are running around the warehouse, doing shipping and receiving stuff. They use some shipping and receiving tool, but we still need to be able to communicate with them, right? Hey, do I have another one of these things that needs to go out today in the mail? Like, do I have one sitting on the shelf? right? Well, you send a message in Slack and that person can answer it right here, even though they can't see the opportunity details. And that means that as a collaboration tool, Slack can allow me to communicate with people that don't have Salesforce licenses, even when I'm in Salesforce.
Yeah.
I can still do that, which is so cool.
Yeah. Nice.
Jade, sorry, looking at your question. For Mike's example, incident on a Sunday, can Slackbot calculate the metrics, the ROI, cost to serve? Like, yeah, absolutely. So this is interesting because this demo org doesn't have much data, but I'm gonna, yeah, you can totally integrate a dev org. You can absolutely integrate a dev org. I'm going to switch back to this community workspace. So Slackbot's going to be able to understand the question, which I think is probably the biggest part here, right? Like being able to speak to things like, what is the ROI of having an agent that can do this, right? And then it's going to stick some numbers at it, but it's going to have to estimate these numbers based on some things. But I like what it's doing here because it's giving me this assumptions, right? That's good. It's good to know what you assumed. It's also saying resolved it in 2 minutes, which is aggressive. My step one issue did take 2.5 hours. We did have to change like 32,000 environments. There was a thing there, right? But this is still like, this is a reasonable example. I would doubt this, right? I don't think your SLA time's not going to go to 30 cases per hour just because you have Slackbot, right? There's still real human processing time, but I would say it's going to be improved significantly. I would say it's probably at least going to make you twice as fast. There's a piece of research that Slack did and does repeatedly where we monitor, like we get participants who agree to do this, and we basically record them over their shoulder, and then a person goes and checks how much time they spend looking stuff up. And this is interesting because one of Slack's superpowers is being able to find information for you. So it's a very, very good tool for looking through unstructured data, which everything in Slack is unstructured data. So we have found that a typical person, the work of work, right? A typical person that is a desk worker in a 40-hour work week, they spend 9.2 hours each week looking for something. Looking for a file that I can't find, looking for that comment that somebody does, like whatever it was. I cannot tell you, after I heard that data, I started paying attention to it. And I was like, okay, well, do I really spend that much time looking? Today, I asked Slackbot like 5 times to find something for me that I couldn't find. And now I don't even really try to look. I just ask Slackbot. I had somebody who I created a deck and they moved the deck into a different folder. And that is very annoying, but it's okay because they told me about it. They were like, hey, I moved this and I put your deck with all the other decks. It's like, you could have used a bookmark or like a shortcut, We didn't have to do this. You don't have to do this to me. But I couldn't find it because I know that they did this like last week or the week before or sometime, I don't remember. And so I said, hey, I know that this person moved my deck, but I don't know where it is, but I know they told me where they moved it. And literally Slackbot was like, oh yeah, that was 9 days ago. And they said on this date that they could do that. Here's the link. Here's where it is. And I was like, 8 seconds. I will take 8 seconds over me going and going to my DM with that person, and then reading every thread to see, looking at every link, and then eventually being mad because it's actually in a channel or it was in an MPDM with 3 other people and I was never going to find it to begin with. Because how do you look for, where's the link to the file you moved? Like, what's the right search term for that? It's terrible. But if you're asking an AI, you can just use all your words. Go, someone moved my presentation. I'm pretty sure it was this person and it was this presentation and it's not there now. Help me out. Which the other thing, like I showed earlier, that Slackbot was connected to my calendar. Slackbot is also connected to my Google Drive. So it literally could just look through Google Drive until it finds it. And it could find things that I've created that aren't in my drive, which is brilliant. Your question about a dev org, I'm going to verify a URL before I give it to you. But it's fsdc.co/get connected, I'm pretty sure.
That's the Google Drive. So what?
Yeah, that's right here. This is a Trailhead project that you can do that I just put in the chat. That Trailhead project will get you a dev org with an agent if you want to deploy agents and a Slack instance, and we'll talk you through the process of getting them connected. If you like laughing and you want to see Jen Lee and I connect orgs, you can watch this, which Jen Lee is a friend of mine, and we agreed to make an episode of Slack School together. And to tell you how easy it is to connect Slack and Salesforce, there's a lot of back and forth, but it's very simple. You copy your domain from Salesforce, put it into Slack, say, go connect with this Salesforce instance. You say what you're connecting with, like you have to have a person-to-person key. We pick email. You go into Salesforce, you pick email, you click agree, you're done. We screwed up recording it so many times that when we actually recorded it, it only took us 2 minutes. But it's fun stuff. Okay, did you have a question? You have your hand raised.
Yeah, I had a question. If you can connect to OneDrive as well, if you know?
Yes, you can. You can connect to OneDrive. And there's actually, if you go into any of your Slack instances, go to apps, go over here, browse. You can find OneDrive right here. Well, there's Google Drive. OneDrive is here, but if I do browse apps, sorry, it's going to open over here. In the collections, you can do the Office. And all of the Microsoft suite is here. So you can do calendar, you can do your emails and OneDrive and SharePoint. That's why I didn't, because it's also SharePoint. There's also, my most favorite one is Teams. You can install Teams, believe it or not. But it's the part of Teams that works, which is the meeting part, not the other part. Yeah. That's all I'll say about that.
Thank you.
Yeah. What? Oh, the security side. Yeah, I can talk about security real quick. So a little bit more along the lines of what I was talking about before, how when Slackbot is doing something in Salesforce, Slackbot is only essentially tunneling through my access. I've already authenticated into Salesforce. And so Slackbot is on my behalf taking an action. I don't have this set up, but this is a forward-looking statement. Don't buy anything because I said it. I also don't buy anything because of me. Then no one's going to give me any credit for it. So don't do that. But forward-looking statement. Slackbot is going to, in the not too distant future, have the ability to use the running user's CRUD in Salesforce. Meaning not only will Slackbot be able to query Salesforce, Slackbot will be able to write a record, edit a record, or delete a record if the running user has access to do so. Forward-looking statement. Don't buy anything. So to your question about the security of that, I'm always going to be limited to what my user can do, right? If I'm a system admin, I'm going to have fairly broad access, right? If I'm a BDR that can only see 5 accounts, then I have very limited access. And same thing is going to be true when you go into these other systems. Slack's approach to security is twofold. The biggest part of it is we rely on the other system to regulate, not Slack. All Slackbot or Slack is going to ever do is surface what the other system lets us see, right? So if I hook up Asana, which you can do very easily, and then I could see stories and Slackbot can tell me, hey, there is a story for this. I can only see that Jira ticket or that Asana story if I have access to it. If I don't have access to it, Slackbot won't have access to it. Yeah, which question?
I just heard you were doing like CRUD operations from Slack.
Forward-looking statement, yes. Slackbot will have the ability to follow your CRUD, the logged in user's CRUD.
So then basically, like, the idea is to have like one interface to do CRUD operations from, like, oh, if I'm creating a record, I can create it from the.
Well, you can already do that though.
Yeah, you do that already, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can already do that. If I'm here and I want, like I'm on this account, I can go do kind of whatever I want. Like if I wanted to open up, of course it opens up in a window over here. If I wanted to open up, and this is a demo org, so it's kind of slow, but if I want to create a new opportunity, I can create a new opportunity right here. The point of, I think the point of having this kind of setup is that I don't actually need to go anywhere or do anything. I can just work. Like if we take a big step back and we start to say, well, like, why is it, like, what is it that is happening with Slack, right? And what does the future of technology look? If I'm being very visionary and I'm trying to look down the road, way down the road, like 3 years down the road, and I want to ask myself, okay, well, what is it about the world of technology that's going to change? The big current changing factor is AI. And it's not that there are lots of little AI functions. It's that AI is giving us the ability to change how we work with data. What we've been doing for the last however many years is really work with spreadsheets. Like even Salesforce is a very large spreadsheet, right? Just lives in the sky. It's very happy to live there and it loves it. But we've built these views that are all around records and rows, right? We just want to look at our spreadsheets. And maybe we don't use Excel anymore, but we're still just playing with spreadsheets. Slack is built for a world in which the value of data is in the database and work happens with people talking to each other and facilitating something, making the business actually happening, solving the customer's problem, coming up with the new product, working around the code, whatever it is. It's in the human connection and the collaboration. And then how do we bring the AI into that so that we don't have to actually change what we're doing? We can just work with it. And that's the vision of where Slack is headed, where Slack becomes an interface layer for not just Salesforce, but for all of the disparate systems that you use, right? One of the things that we learned a couple of years ago when Data Cloud first came out, Salesforce did a ton of study about how many applications does a typical company actually use to do what it's doing? And the average, so of all companies we studied, the average was like 870 something. So if you have 870 business systems, the amount of context switching you're doing is really wild. What we really want to do is we want to figure out how to surface all of those in one spot and then make all of that be surfaced by a single AI layer, right? And so what you have is you have Slackbot that can go into your OneDrive or your email or your Salesforce or your ERP and pull all of that, synthesize it together, and then give you something actionable, right? In addition to that, again, forward-looking statement, Slackbot in the future is going, and again, not even distant future, is going to have the ability to talk to other agents on your behalf. And so when I say they've approved this, they're ready to do redlining, we need to get them the first draft of the contract. I can say that to Slackbot, and Slackbot goes, oh, you're talking about this opportunity. We need to change the opportunity to negotiation. And negotiation level lets me, Slackbot, go talk to the agent for DocuSign. And Slackbot knows what it's allowed to share with DocuSign. And so it gives just that data to DocuSign and tells the DocuSign agent to go send the contract. So the DocuSign agent goes, builds the envelope, sends the contract, and then comes back and says, great, I updated the opportunity and sent the contract. It's ready for redlining, right? I didn't have to edit the data and then go run the DocuSign thing. I just told Slackbot, Slackbot edits the data, Slackbot calls the agent and does the DocuSign stuff.
Are we using Agent Fabric for this?
Say that one more time.
Are we going to use Agent Fabric for this activity? Or
That's in the background, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's in the background of this, yeah. That's partly how the facilitation is being performed. Again, this is forward-looking, so take this with a healthy grain of salt, but that's the direction. The big reason why we want to include Slack in this and not just go pure Fabric is because, and this is, I think, probably one of the biggest things that people are going to be talking about for years, is privacy. Slack has formally stated that we will not permit AI training on our data. That was a very, like, a lot of people had a lot of feelings about that, but we have decided that Slack is not a place for data that is for AI training, and we do not permit it. So Slack is one of the only systems that you can use that actually keeps your data secure. And the amount to which this is true, here's my Gemini. Literally, go to whatever your favorite LLM is and ask this question. And I'm going to get a question that's like, oh, you're so good to ask. I'm so glad that you asked. But here's the thing, maybe we actually can train on your data. We won't sell your data because, see up here where it says you're on a corporate agreement, we won't sell your data, but can I train on your data? Oh yeah. Ooh, even humans can look at the data. And I'm telling you, this contract up here, this big old Salesforce contract with Google, it's big. And yet, it's not really that private. Slack does not train on your data. We will not train on your data, period, end of story. And we've got a public statement about it. We do not allow AI training on this data, period. So it's literally like a safety island. And if you want to say something and you want it to be private, or you want it to be at least secure within your organization, say it in Slack. All right, I see your question here. Will Audit Trailer third-party security app exchange tools, will they be available to use to secure the org? So there's a lot of different directions for this. The biggest one is going to be access to the environment. You can always use SSO. We would encourage that. And SSO gives you a pretty good significant amount of security from an access perspective. In terms of third parties, APIs, things like that, you can layer in monitoring tools. Slack does come with some monitoring. But there's an interesting wrinkle. It's very similar to the same vein of what we've been talking about. Slack believes in privacy, like really, really believes in privacy. So much so that your direct messages are private, even to the environment that you're sending them in. So let's take a very real example. I am not an admin in the Salesforce internal workspace, right? I'm not on that team. I'm not one of those people. If I send a DM to my colleague, there is no admin that can actually query the Slack database for my private conversation. Cannot happen. The only way for it to happen is for us to go down a process called legal hold, where the customer that has the environment says, hey, Salesforce, I need you to query from this date to this date, messages sent from this user to this user, even if they're in a direct message. And we're going to say no. And then the customer has to say, well, here's our formal HR complaint or our legal hold reason for you to give us that private information. And then we will look at it, make sure it's real and go, okay, and then we'll do it. So you have to elevate it to a level where you're saying, no, HR is involved or the law is involved, right? I need to know what that person said to that person. Because the thing is, Slack is not and has never been a community tool. And I know like we use Slack for community, but it's not a good community tool. We don't use it. Like it shouldn't really be bought for that. I hope no one's buying it for that. What Slack completely lacks is this idea of moderation, because it's not a public facing tool. It's always been an internal within your company tool. And we don't moderate inside our own companies, right? It's not really a feature, right? So from to your question about like, what kind of access or auditability do we have? At a high level, I can tell you a lot of information. But when it gets down to the nuts and bolts, if it's in a public channel, like this general channel that's a public channel, like I can see this Google Drive doc if I wanted to get into it, and we can query it, we can look at that. But this like project Slack, I mean, there's nothing in it, but this is not public and you can't query for it. DMs, direct messages, they cannot be queried at all unless you are a member of the DM and you're exporting your own data, or you go through that legal hold. This, by the way, this is automation that I had set up in this. So this is a link to the opportunity as a card that came up, which is fun because you can set up a lot of different types of automation to allow Salesforce and Slack to actually run well together. So this is that opportunity that I created a little while ago, and it doesn't have a channel yet. Like up here, there's no Salesforce channel for it. But if I wanted to create one, I would just click this and say, yeah, create it. Or if there's already been conversations going, I could link it to an existing one. And then it'll create the channel, and then I have the details over here again. And I can work it like a regular opportunity if I want. Just like this one, where I had this. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah, Mike, great stuff, by the way. Anyway, another question on the, for example, like you said, okay, hey, let's make our like HR policies bot, right? Kind of thing for people. We just want to look at some one specific folder with like 50 policies rather than looking at the whole of the company's drives. So how will that work out? You have to make a separate bot or point it out, or?
Why would I need to make a separate bot?
No, that's what I'm asking. Like, okay, so it'll be just like, it will automatically look at that particular folder.
Let's say if we wanted to boost performance and only wanted to ground our data from one folder, is it possible?
Well, Okay, so can I limit Slackbot's information?
Yes.
Slackbot is built off of an LLM that is like one of the biggest, right? So in terms of performance, if you're looking for performance, like if you're building an Agentforce agent and I care about credit consumption, I actually don't want big models. I want small models that are tight. Like 1 billion is enough, right? Like give me 1 billion tight is better than 7 billion big or 11 billion big, right? So you can increase performance by reducing model size, and that's honestly a very good thing to do. This is not designed for that. This is designed to be a generalist. Now, I have a very, very well refined agent that we use internally called Alex that explains employee benefits specifically to our plans and understands a boatload of complexity. And it has access to more sensitive information about me than Slack has, right? That agent, I would surface that agent in Slack and I would talk to it directly. Or you could talk to Slackbot and Slackbot would talk to that agent, and Slackbot would just understand it needs to talk to that agent because of the nature of the question, right? But to your point, like, do you even need to do the thing that you're asking? And I would say, no, actually you don't, because you don't pay for consumption of Slackbot's time. And so when you ask a question, as long as it's clear what you're asking, you're going to get the correct answer. If you get the wrong answer, you're going to realize you asked the wrong question, and a person probably would have also been confused, right? So if you're trying to check the specific policy that we have about whatever circumstance, and your question is not pointed at that, would a person know that they need to go check that? Because if yes, then Slackbot's going to go, right? If no, Slackbot's going to go, well, it sounds like you want this, So, and this is an interesting thing. I got a hallucination out of Slackbot the other day. I asked a question about, there's a field in, it's in system permissions. You can get to it that lets you create historical data. So it lets you set the immutable fields, but only when you're using the API and only when you're inserting a record. So if I wanted to set the last modified day, created date, last modified by, created by, I can set those as facts when creating the record if you turn on this permission. And I asked Slackbot to tell me how to find the permission because I was looking for it in the system settings and I couldn't find it. And I said, hey, how do I do this? And Slackbot said, oh, you actually open a case with support and support does it. And I've done this so many times. Like I've done this, I've inserted probably 30 million rows of historical data over my career. And I know I've never asked support to turn this on for me, not as an employee and not as a customer. And so I challenged Slackbot and I said, is that a new policy? Can you tell me when that went into effect? And Slackbot went back, did more research, and then came back and said, you know what, I made a mistake. What Slackbot found was an instance where a person couldn't find it and support found it for them. There's another menu where you have to turn that field on, and support solved it for them. And so Slackbot looked in old cases, found one, then it did another turn on its own, found several more examples of this, and decided it was going to trust it. So when I looked into it, Slackbot was correct, but it missed the point. What they did was just check a box on a different screen, which I could do myself. I didn't need support. But when I challenged it, it figured it out. So it's interesting. I don't want to say that it's like gonna not hallucinate, because it's going to hallucinate in the same way that a human would when they misunderstand you, right? And so the same thing happens here. You'll get that no matter what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for the scenario. We were just thinking about if you create an Agentforce agent, right? And so you would create, to reduce the model size, like I remember there's a selection you can do, bring your own model, or
BYOM,
or select the models from the options, like the preset.
Correct.
Like those are the main ones, and
Yeah,
that's basically how you would go about getting a smaller model, correct?
correct. You could do it that way. And I would also say that, like, when you get into some really complicated things, you're going to want like data libraries, like very specific data libraries through Data Cloud. Like, I want this is our like. I was working with a semi-trucking company, and they have applicable, or they call it sibling parts, where they trust this part number could be this company with this part number. And they maintain that in a data library. And then we just expose the data library through an agent to Slackbot. Slackbot can talk to the agent. Again, that's forward facing. That's not GA. Don't buy anything. But Slackbot talks to the agent. The agent references that very particular limited information. And then we teach Slackbot, when you deploy the agent and you explain what the agent is for, Slackbot then understands what the agent is for. It uses that metadata. But Slackbot then understands, hey, when I ask you for comparable parts, sibling parts, other parts that will fit this truck, you go to this agent only, and this agent gets that. There's also, again, forward facing, don't buy anything. There's another thing that's coming out called skills, and you'll be able to give Slackbot a skill where you give it a more rigid, slightly more deterministic path, where you say, I need you to do these 5 dominoes in order, right? Slackbot's still way more powerful than an agent. Even if you look at the way the agents work, Agentforce agents and most agents, they have a working memory of like 5 to 6 turns. Slackbot's is 10. And Slackbot does, I forget how many degrees of parallel processing, but it can run, it's at least 5 parallel processes. I think it's much more than that. When it first rolled out, it was 5. But so if you give it something where it's like, hey, I need you to go search for whatever, it can search Salesforce like 3 different ways at the same time. Search OneDrive, search your Confluence, and then search all of Slack data, and it'll do all those things at the same time. And then as it gets results, it might refine and retry even before it comes back with its first response to you. Like it's got a crazy cognitive load. It's pretty impressive. Jade, your question about installing the apps. So I want to be clear. There's 2 sets of apps, actually. You have an app in Slack that is Salesforce, right? So that is when I'm down here in my apps, I have this specific Salesforce app, right? But this is in Slack. Conversely, in Salesforce, you have to install the Slack managed package. I will tell you that is a today problem, not a forever problem. And again, forward-looking statement, don't hold me to this. Release 262, I think, you won't have to do that. I think. That's 262. Which I think is summer. Sorry, that's summer 26 is 262. I don't know if I missed anybody's question in the...
I think you've answered all of them.
Oh, there's one in here. If we have a high volume of cases, how do we know the search has been optimized? So this is a really interesting question. I will actually tell you, Salesforce doesn't think that you're that good at searching for stuff. I hate to break it to you. We don't actually run the search you run. We optimize your searches and we swap them out for the search that we wanted you to run, which is more optimal than the one that you actually enter in. And I believe that happens even if you write your own SOCL or SOCL. If it's in your code, we run your code. But if it's in like a browser, I think we do like an actual optimization on yours before we actually hit the server. There are some reasons for this. There's only one table. That's the biggest reason. But we do refine on the Salesforce side, when it receives the query from Slackbot, it goes through that same process of refining. And it's not you, it's because of the way that Salesforce is built. Salesforce is actually only one table of data. And so the query that you write, which is written for several objects that might be related to each other, it doesn't actually work that way, and we rewrite it anyway. So we do that optimization on the query no matter what.
I had a question about the skills too.
Yeah.
So like, is this similar to MCP or like?
No. These are different technologies, right? So MCP, Model Context Protocol, is really the HTTP of agent-to-agent communication. So think of MCP as the set of rules that agents use to talk to each other. Skills are in Slack. When we talk about a Slackbot skill, skills are a series of steps which need to be performed in the order in which they are listed. So it's a different type of thing entirely, and doesn't necessarily even have to relate to agent.
I had a follow-up on this, right? Is skill
Yeah.
similar to a persona which we give to a particular agent?
So skills in Slack are going to be for Slackbot to make use of. Excuse me. And Slackbot is always Slackbot. Slackbot might use might use a skill and then go, as part of the skill, I need to talk to this agent. But the skill still applies to Slackbot, not the agent.
Okay.
Agents don't get skills in the same way, right? Agents, you would build a topic, and then that topic is where it's going to get its actual capabilities.
Okay.
Which, fun fact, that's because the topic works as a sub agent underneath the overall agent, which is why that like topic to topic thing, if you've ever looked at like an Agentforce agent where you build out a topic and you build out another topic, the agent struggles to go from one topic to the other in the same turn. That's because these are individual agents. Each topic functions that way. So if you really have like a multi-turn thing, or I have a process that is going to revolve topic 1 and topic 2, a lot of times you run into issues there because that handoff doesn't go well. But if you separate it into 2 requests, like first I want you to do topic 1, and then it goes, yeah, I did topic 1. And then you go, great, now can you do topic 2? It goes, yeah, I did topic 2. And there's like no problems because you've separated it into different turns.
Yep. That
Yeah, and so right now Slack is available only to enterprise and business.
You can add Slackbot to any tier, but Slackbot is included at the enterprise grid or at enterprise level.
Oh, you can add it to the pro too?
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. It's an additional cost.
Oh, it's an additional cost. Okay.
Yes, it is an additional cost. Yeah.
And what is it, the cost? Do you have it over the
Talk to your account executive. I have no idea. I don't know what anything costs. I know what Service Cloud list price is. That's the only one I remember. It's $330 a month, PUPM. And I know no one pays that. So it's the most useless Jeopardy knowledge I know.
Yeah. Another one, Mike, on the skills, is it the same thing like the Claude skills that you have, that you attach the skills.md file, different skills that you have?
Similar idea.
Similar idea.
Yeah,
And
similar idea.
so basically, how will that work? Like in case, I know it's like maybe finance skill or whatever skill, like the marketing skill. So you'll attach that skill before you ask a question, or it will like automatically it will go and find the skill.
It's going to understand that it needs to use the skill.
Okay, so you don't, okay.
Yeah, so you don't actually have to do anything. And that's kind of the design. When you look at the way that Slack operates, Slack's view of like the level of effort to get something to work, our level of effort that we ask out of our end users is very, very low. And we fight pretty hard to keep it as low as it can possibly be. Like, I don't want you to have to think about it at all. I want it to be as absolutely easy as possible. And that's why the model that sits behind Slackbot is so big, because I want it to just understand you. No matter what's happening, I want it to understand your context, and I want it to understand what you wanted. And I want that on the first try. So I don't want you to specify anything. If I can get it from the context, I'm going to take it.
All right.
Also, what's the future of Slackbot looking like? What's on roadmap? Can you reveal some stuff?
I can tell you that on March 31st, we are having an event, and it is going to be very well worth watching. There's a whole lot of innovation in this space. The people that are working on this are some of the most brilliant and talented engineers that I've had the pleasure of meeting, and they are shockingly good at developing features. I think I'm not going to give any spoilers. I will refrain. 331 is close, but the stuff that we're going to get to talk about at TDX, and you'll be able to get very hands-on. I've designed a lot of hands-on experiences. So if you're headed to TDX, you won't miss the Slack stuff. As soon as you walk in, level 1 of Moscone, we're right in the front door. And we've got really cool hands-on things that you can do. Some of the stuff that's coming is like I'm excited. I'm really excited to get my hands on it in production. So.
And yeah, I think, hi Jade, hi Sita. So yeah, we are headed to TDX, and I believe Slack is the new interface of Salesforce, or is
Yeah.
future of, say, the future interface.
Yeah.
So instead of, because there's some resistance to how you explore Salesforce. Like it has so many layers, and there's so many issues when end users. So what is the adoption looking like for Slack, which is going to be the new interface?
The growth of Slack has been very high. The adoption has been generally very positive. I mean, so Slack remains, if you look at, rating sites like G2, Slack is the most beloved enterprise technology on the market by double-digit margins. It is just very easy to use, and it's playful and fun. Like work doesn't have to be so worky. It could be more fun, and Slack really tries to live that. So, yeah.
Power.
All right. Anyone else have any questions?
All right, well, thank you all so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
It was a great, wholesome meeting. Thanks so much, Mike. If you cleared all our questions as well. Thank you, everyone, for attending. So have a great rest of your day.